The Lord of the Rings community got some big news recently, but it's not so great for Prime Video's The Rings of Power. The fantasy TV series was the first on-screen adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's works in years, following up Peter Jackson's Hobbit trilogy. However, Rings of Power is far from the last, since Warner Bros. And New Line Cinema have several new Lord of the Rings movies in the works. Coming up first is the tentatively titled The Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum. This movie will be set just before the events of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, during a story outlined by Tolkien's books that sees a variety of characters seek out and attempt to capture Gollum. Actor Andy Serkis, who played this character in Jackson's films, will direct and reprise his role. Aside from Serkis' Gollum, we previously had no idea what other actors and characters would be featured in The Hunt for Gollum. However, Sir Ian McKellen recently hinted that both Gandalf and Frodo would appear in this movie. Though he didn't explicitly say, this strongly indicates that both McKellen and Elijah Wood are members of the cast for the upcoming film, and that could be an issue for Rings of Power. Gandalf and Frodo in the new Lord of the Rings movie is bad news for Rings of Power. Gandalf smoking a pipe next to Frodo from Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is a massive project with a significant budget. It's evident that Prime Video is looking to leave a definitive mark within the Lord of the Rings franchise. However, the series has, so far, been highly divisive. It would be nearly impossible to adapt Tolkien's writing about the Second Age without making major changes, but The Rings of Power has adjusted far more than many had expected. Though Rings of Power has no shortage of fans, even if they aren't quite as loud as the critics, the Prime Video series will likely never be as popular or iconic as Jackson's original Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's certainly trying, but competing with beloved films such as these is an arduous uphill battle. The news that two major Lord of the Rings stars are returning to the screen certainly doesn't help matters. Rings of Power's massive Gandalf changes are sure to become an even bigger problem. The stranger, Daniel Wayman, finds his staff and acquires the name of Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Since The Hunt for Gollum and Rings of Power are set during two entirely different periods of Middle-earth's history, it would initially seem that they wouldn't butt heads. However, one of the more controversial changes made by the Prime Video series was the decision to include Gandalf's character. Gandalf isn't meant to be in Middle-earth during the Second Age, according to Tolkien canon. However, Rings of Power Season 2 officially confirmed that Daniel Wayman's stranger character is actually the Grey Wizard himself. This creates a point of crossover with Hunt for Gollum, since two versions of the character will be on screens around the same time.